Well, you've heard all about this massive new submarine deal, I'm sure, but three things about it really surprised me, and one embarrasses the Albanese government. Now, I don't doubt that we need these 8 nuclear submarines we'll supposedly build here, plus 3 Virginia-class subs we'll first buy from the US, at least one of those is second-hand, but I don't mind, because we need it very fast. But it'll almost certainly be dead by the time the last ones are delivered, more than 40 years from now. So, nevertheless, I'm with the Prime Minister.
Whatever the challenges ahead, the cause of peace and freedom that we share will prevail. Thank you very much.
But to the surprises. The first thing that surprised me were the rubbery figures about the cost. As the Australian reports, we'll pay between $268 billion to $388 billion out to the mid-2050s and more after that. But hang on, so this could cost us $288 billion, or then again perhaps another $100 billion more? That's a hell of a difference. That sounds to me like a guess more than a costing. Still, what's $100 billion between friends, right? The second thing that struck me is this. Labor's always had an anti-American edge, at least on the Labor left, but now has a socialist left Prime Minister who today made clear at a quite chaotic press conference that for the next few decades at least, we'll rely all the way on the Americans for our security.
What we've really done is just to demonstrate a next chapter in our history together. John Curtin, one of my great Labor Prime Minister predecessors during World War II, said famously, we turn to America, we look to America in our time of need.
Surviving an isolationist president.
Why did you choose Australia as a partner here?
You're very reliable.
Thank you.
Now, again, I'm okay with that bit too, but the third surprise is the biggest. Labor is finally ditching one of its great superstitions. For decades, it's pushed the anti-nuclear scare. Yet, now we have a Labor government saying yes to nuclear submarines. Labor has even said yes to storing the nuclear waste of those subs in Australia. Now, this is a big change, and I think a good change. But it does expose Labor's total incoherence on nuclear power, hypocrisy I'd even call it. Here is a Labor government saying yes to nuclear power for our submarines, but still saying no to nuclear power for our homes and factories when we're running out of electricity. Nuclear power is fine for our Navy, but not for anyone else, says our anti-nuclear energy minister, Chris Bowen, who is preying on people's irrational fears.
I look forward to the opposition releasing information as to where the nuclear power plants will go. The LNP, Mr Speaker, stands for Local Nuclear Power Plant.
Yet nuclear power is not just safe. I mean, even at the Fukushima disaster, not a single death or illness from radiation. But nuclear is also the cheapest way we now have to get zero emissions power day in, day out, without having to build all backups and all this kind of stuff. And the weird thing is that while Labor bans nuclear power for our homes, it's now telling us how brilliant nuclear is for our subs. I mean, for instance, these new subs can stay underwater for months. Diesel ones can't. The fumes, the fuel, it's got to come up. And what that means is that we can send nuclear subs to the sea lanes that China would use in a war without a problem, I mean, like in the South China Sea. And they could stay there silently for 77 days. That's one in the middle, number 3. The diesel ones can stay for only 11 days, huge difference. Or we could send the nuclear subs to wait off PNG for 3 months. If the Chinese come, they'll probably be past that area as well. And diesel one can't stay 3 months, it can only stay 3 weeks. So if nuclear power can do all that for the Navy, what can it do for the rest of us? Don't believe the propaganda that nuclear isn't safe. It's used now in more than 440 power stations around the world. And if it's safe for a submarine with nearly 200 Australian sailors inside, it's surely safe somewhere in our countryside too, like on a former, now closed coal-fired power station site. Now, our bans on nuclear power have come at a price. If we hadn't had this irrational idea that it's all too dangerous, all too hard, we wouldn't now be starting so far back with these subs. I mean, where are the Navy's nuclear experts? Where are the country's nuclear experts? Where is our own nuclear industry for these subs? So that when we build them here, we can be self-sufficient instead of so dependent on the US and on Britain. Now, Labor's made a start in dumping its anti-nuclear hysteria with these subs. Now it's got to dump it entirely. The stakes are now too high for stupidity.